Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest in the PhD podcast series here at the University of Limerick. And I'm delighted today to welcome Chloe Carroll. So, Chloe, can you give us a little bit of background about yourself and your research project?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me first.
Great.
I'm originally from Wexford. I came to Limerick undergrad, MA, a little bit of a PhD ago, but my academic journey actually started in Wexford with a VTech in media studies, and I just loved it. There's a research module, so I kept pursuing it, came to Limerick, and I just never left. This is where my academic home has been. So my research itself it's changed due to my interests. I pursued film, gender, mixed, and now that is exactly what my PhD involves, the best of both worlds.
Excellent. And so could you pinpoint, a time when, or say something that kind of triggered this passion for your area, Chloe, or was it something that evolved over a much longer spell of time?
I suppose it developed from personal interests. I look at monsters quite a lot and renegotiating the monsters. So my pursuit of those starts at looking at the roots. And I suppose if you look at my roots, there's monsters. I wasn't a very shielded child from all of that. Dog Soldiers was my favorite movie. So, a kid living on the mountains, that was great. But I suppose I started to pursue them. Most kids grew out of it. I just never did. And that led me to pursuing it in my studies. I looked at The Handmaid's Tale during my research for my MA because, some monsters are human. And it led me to looking at Puritan values. And that led to The Witch, which led me to renegotiating the monstrous of The Witch. So it's been a long journey, but I guess the actual academic side really stemmed from my MA. It kind of showed me the natural step for me now was the PhD, to create something big.
Yeah, great. And so in terms of taking that natural step, why did you decide to do a PhD at UL? It was obviously you were going to do a PhD, but why at the University of Limerick?
During my undergrad, my favourite modules were film and the gender. And I had Dr. Mariano Paz for one, Dr. Sinead McDermott for the other. And I just came back to them. They were the dream team that, they inspired the interests. So it was quite a journey to actually get to start the PhD. But when I decided UL, they were quite a big part of me choosing it because I wanted them on the team. I wanted the people who had inspired me to keep going. So just even the whole staff, the resources and the campus, which you have behind you, I know we've missed it right now, but it was just home and I wanted to come back.
Okay, great. And just in terms of what you're working, I know you're in the early stages, very early stages of your PhD, but just could you tell us what you're working on at the moment, and are you building towards a certain milestone in the near future?
One thing I wish I told myself last year was that you don't have to justify the lockdown by piling on a lot of work. So I have a lot going on at the moment with book chapters, papers, conferences. But the big thing at the moment, PhD wise, is I've moved on to chapter 1 to focus on the fairy tale aspect of witches. So that's kind of my next goal, is more finding that approach in. So that is my main piece of work at the moment.
Great. And you refer there to lockdown, and obviously, for people watching this, we're still in the middle of a pandemic while this is being recorded. Hopefully that will seem like ancient history to people watching this, but to some of the people at least watching this. But could you tell us, what a typical day working on your PhD looks like at the moment, and whether that has been affected, by the pandemic?
I mean, I wish I could tell you I get up and I have a productive 9 to 5, but I don't. I really don't. I took pressure off myself by actually taking the mornings for myself because I'm not going anywhere. So it doesn't matter if I move my day. But really, it just kind of starts with rereading what I did the day before. Because if you just try to jump in, I find I'm sitting there for an hour staring at the screen. But if I reread, maybe rewrite the last few sentences, sometimes I'll leave off on a sentence that I was working on to pick back up. But it usually just involves sitting down here. Movies are quite big, so sometimes, strange work ethic, I will need a movie on in the background to keep me inspired, keep me focused. A lot of reading, yeah. I'll usually wrap the day up reading a source that I know I'm going to continue with the next day, because I think when each day is rolling into the next, you need to have some finish point that will help you start again, because I've had a few instances where I stop on a full stop and I really struggle to get going again. So you just end up developing these tricks, I think, for yourself, for your work ethic.
Great. That's an excellent kind of segue into my next question, which would be, say, could you give us an example of a problem which you encountered and how you approached that problem and attempted to get over it?
Imposter syndrome was probably the biggest thing, especially here. Like, I haven't actually been on the university since I started my PhD, and you start to feel quite excluded, I think. So dealing with imposter syndrome was probably the biggest thing. You're trying to justify your work to yourself, and in dealing with that, it just again came to taking care of the mental health. I know it's some people might get sick of hearing, during their academic thing, but it is so important that to tackle this problem for me, I needed to do things for myself, to start the day off, even with a workout or something in what I can do in my room, just to start off with a productive start. And it really did help me. And it's not so much presenting at conferences and getting that justification for your work that helps with imposter syndrome. It's just doing it and writing it. And when you're reading it back to yourself, you're kind of like, wow, yeah, okay, I have something of value to produce.
Excellent. Yeah, great. And in terms of, and you talked there about, something of value, which might again lead into which might be a nice lead into the next question, which is about the impact. You referred to witches and monsters and the Handmaid's Tale, and just how we hear so much in terms of the cultural impact of something like Handmaid's Tale. What would you say could be the impact of your research, whether it be in the discipline or whether it be in the in wider society? What are you hoping could be the impact ultimately?
I mean, I'm dreaming big. I'd like
no harm. Yeah.
But I guess what I need to always remind myself is what I want to show is how we are creating and deciphering meaning through something like The Witch. I mean, The Witch, what I would say, is in the middle of a new wave. So typical hag, crone, green witch is not as common anymore. Instead, she's being used as a feminist figure. We're revisiting a history of persecution to revive her. And the way my chapters work, I'm inserting her back into history as an empowered figure. And I guess I want to show that this is how cultural change comes about, by changing a figure like the witch and redoing her and repeating it so much that this is the new tradition, which again is like fairy tales. They are known for their cultural value. They're part of the socialization process. So if we keep repeating gender roles and structures like that, nothing's going to change to do a complete upheaval. So I guess it's not so much saying this is how to do it, but this is what we need to do.
Yeah. Okay. It's probably a great time then to be looking at an issue like this as well, So, and I would ask you then, Chloe, about, when you finish your PhD and complete this important research, what do you think you would like to do, in terms of a career path? Would you like to become an academic, or have you other aspirations? I know it's a question a lot of people don't like dealing with, and I'm sorry to ask it, but
when I decided to pursue the PhD, I really wanted to stay and remain in academia, and going forward, that is where I think I would like to stay. A big thing to do, because it's a hard area to maintain and stay in, but it is something I think I will continue to pursue, to stay in academia, hopefully with UL as well, so never leaving.
Great. And that might, partly answer the next question, which is about, what would you say would be the advantage of doing a PhD, say, to, to not doing one, you know, for someone with your aspirations and someone with your talents and your skills, what would you think would be, you know, the primary advantage of a PhD?
I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I had quite a journey to finally get into UL, pursue the PhD. But I think the biggest push was that I'm too young to have this as the biggest regret, not pursuing this, because it's a question that was dominating my mind before I decided I'm going to make this into a thesis. So I think I would have sincerely regretted it if I'd gone industry and not tried. So I might regret it later. Like, that's not to say that it could all go a bit sideways, but no, I think that was a big push for me that I need to try.
Yeah, that leads then to the last question which I have, which is, you know, what advice would you give to somebody who's thinking of doing a PhD? Somebody, you know, not necessarily thinking of doing a PhD at UL, but just doing a doctorate. What advice would you give to somebody in that position at the moment?
I think the most important thing is that the PhD can be quite an isolating experience. So your support system, put great importance on that, because I do. I know what it's like to feel very lonely in a solo research, but as I chase my boyfriend around the house as a rubber duck, you know, talking about witches, and my supervisors are fantastic to approach. I can talk to them about anything, even if it's just a little bit of added stress. So I really think the support system you have, because it's important to know that you're not alone in the research. It might feel like it. This is your narrative, but there's a lot of people to talk to about it. And especially, even if people aren't in UL, but I can say that UL has a lot of people who will welcome you to talk it out.
Excellent. That's really good to know, and I think those support systems are so important. As you say, it can be for some, it can be an isolating experience doing a PhD, and just having that support in place is fantastic, even if it entails chasing your boyfriend around the house.
He's get out now.
Yeah. Chloe, Carl, thank you so much for that. That was, you know, that was really great and really insightful. And the research that you're doing, you know, it's just so important, so relevant for the current era that we're living through. So thank you so much. It was a real pleasure talking to you and hearing about your research.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
That's great. Thank you so much, Chloe. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.